Good morning, everybody. We're live here from the birdhouse. It is May 23rd. We are still in somewhat of a migration season here in upstate New York. And so I'll be sharing with you guys today some of the photos you have sent in of the different things you've seen in your yard and some other things you can expect to see, at least in the upstate New York area, and then other places as well. If you're on the East Coast, shouldn't be too different depending on your location. And as always, we'd like to know who's on. You can say hi in the comments. If you have any questions, you can throw those in there too. And we always like to know what kind of things you're seeing, so you can throw those in the comments as well. But let's get started. We haven't done a birding update in a little bit, so it should be fun to kind of catch up here. As far as migration goes, it's still happening. I mean, we have seen some different peaks, and it's been kind of ebbing and flowing depending on the area of the country. But if you look at the map here, that's this birdcast map, where it's showing the different spikes in migration and where it's strong and where it's a little bit weaker. You can see there's still a lot of action happening. There's still a lot of birds flowing through the continental U.S. Tonight, going into tomorrow, it's predicted that 224 million birds are going to be flowing through the continental U.S. So it's still a lot is happening, including in our area, in upstate New York area. There's still things flowing in. So if you haven't had much luck with Orioles or hummingbirds, which I'm personally experiencing, and I know some of you guys are too. Some of you are seeing a lot, some of you are seeing very little. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but be on the lookout because they're still coming in. So it's not like you've missed the boat on them. And you can see in the middle of the country there's a whole bunch of migration still happening. So they're still flowing in, and over the next couple days, it should fizzle a little bit. Especially going into Wednesday into Thursday, it's looking a little bit less, quite a bit less actually, and then it picks up a little bit again going on later in the week. So it's always a fun thing to kind of keep an eye out on, is the migration that's flowing through the U.S. And that's a website called Birdcast, and they update it every day, and that is by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So that's always a reference for you if you're looking to kind of get a good feel for if there's going to be a big migratory push. Some things I've been seeing when I was went out last weekend for a bit to spend some time on a little parcel of land I have. I am happy to say I've got a whole bunch of tree swallows nesting. I've never seen so many tree swallows in my life. Almost every birdhouse I have is occupied by something, and most of them are occupied by tree swallows. So I've got tree swallows all over the place, and it's only a matter of time until you start seeing those little heads pop out of the hole of the little nestling. So I'm excited to see that. But seen lots of tree swallows. Happened upon a brown thrasher that was singing its little heart out. The brown thrasher is a type of mimicking bird, just like the catbirds and the northern mockingbirds. You can tell you have a brown thrasher if you hear it. They tend to repeat the songs twice in a row before moving on to the next, whereas catbirds will sing a song once, move on to the next, and then keep going. And then at the end, they do a little sound that sounds like a meow. And then the mockingbird will repeat songs 3 times in a row before moving on to the next, in general. Sometimes they go on a little bit, but in general, you can tell who you have based on how many times they're repeating their songs. So this is something called the brown thrasher. You might even see them underneath your bird feeder here and there. I had one once in my backyard that I was just lucky enough to be there at the right time to see. So you never know what you might see in your backyard. Not the most common backyard bird, but things are moving around during migration time. So you might just happen upon them. But this is a brown thrasher. Also, I've got lots of bobolinks up there, which are a grassland bird. And these are my favorites to see up there because in general, grassland birds are in big declines. And so it's good to see a bunch of bobolinks out there. Thought I saw a pair of meadowlarks, but I'm not totally sure. They were way off in the distance. So I'll have to do a little bit more investigating and see if I've got some of those out there as well. But lots of bobolinks. This is the male here, a type of blackbird. They're migratory as well. So they just started coming back to the area. And then there's a little song sparrow just perched on top of this shrub, just singing its little heart out. So got to see some cool things this weekend. But you guys have been sending in photos of some different activities that have been going on in the backyard. So here's a recap of Bob's Bluebirds. So Bob's been sending in photos of the Bluebirds. First, it was the pictures of the mother building the nest and the eggs. And he had the pictures of the eggs. There were 3 or 4 eggs. And this is the last picture that I believe we saw. It says, someone is starting to realize there's more to the world than that tiny box. Hopefully the 4 babies, maybe 3, will fledge this weekend. Well, this is the newest photo of the Bluebirds, the newest series of photos, I guess I should say, of the Bluebirds that Bob sent in. I love this picture here where you can see the 3 little heads all sticking out of the box. And he says, I was right in my assumption that only 3 of the 4 eggs were viable, so close to fledging. So you can see those young Bluebirds are sticking their heads out of the house there, waiting to get fed by the parents. And then this is the next update here from Bob. He said was able to photograph 2 of the 3 Bluebird fledglings. The third was in the same tree, just in another part. So here's the little baby Bluebird that is out in the world. Really cute photo there of the baby. And here you can see 2 of them, one up in the kind of nook of that branch and then the other one down below. So the first round of Bluebirds in his box have fledged. So Bluebirds can have 2 or 3 broods a year. So hopefully they will start the nest building process and the egg laying process all over again soon. And those young that are here in this photo, the first round of fledglings, will sometimes stick around and help the parents raise the next broods. So it'll be interesting to see if any of that activity happens. And if you've got the Bluebirds, don't forget mealworms. They do love the mealworms, especially once their eggs have hatched. They're feeding those babies all kinds of insect protein, and mealworms are a great way to keep them coming. So if you do have Bluebird houses, you might get tree swallows. So I was showing you some of the tree swallows I get in my Bluebird houses, but this is a nice up-close picture of what they look like. The tree swallows have a bright blue iridescent back and a very bright white breast, not to be confused with barn swallows, which are also flying around. They nest on structures in general, not so much in houses. You won't really see them in a house, but you might see them nesting in a gazebo or some kind of structure that's outdoors, especially if it's by water. They seem to like that quite a bit. So barn swallows are also pretty iridescent on their back, but you can see they have a lot more of an orangish coloration to them, and they have that really what's called a forked tail. So they've got that really deeply forked tail there. So that's the barn swallow. Ruby-throated hummingbirds. People are getting some of them. We've kind of gotten mixed reports of those, that some people aren't getting as many as usual. And that has kind of been a trend over the last several years, people getting less and less hummingbirds. So that's unfortunate to hear about, but maybe they're just a little bit late. Maybe they're there and just not happening upon them at the right times, but they're definitely here in the area. People are getting them. So you want to make sure you keep that nectar clean and fresh. We do have the nectar defender that you can add to your hummingbird nectar to keep it fresh longer for more like a week or 10 days. If you are not seeing that many hummingbirds and you want to keep that nectar out, but you don't want have to go through that process of switching it out every couple of days, I would highly suggest adding some of that nectar defender to your nectar. Orioles, though, people are having really good luck with Orioles in general, and I've seen a lot as I've been out hiking and doing some bird walks. We've been leading bird walks here for the store. We've seen Orioles at every single bird walk. So the Orioles seem pretty strong, and there's a lot of them out there. I've been kind of striking out with them in my backyard, but lots of people are getting them. And here's a series of photos sent in by Mark. It says fun Oriole series, bath time. So it looks like the male and the female both are taking time to enjoy some water there, and they're really splashing away. So not only can you get Orioles coming to feeders, but they are also attracted to water. And then this is the final photo, all clean, that he sent in. So that's a fun series of photos there of the Orioles enjoying the water. But the Orioles are definitely in that nest building process. In fact, in the last week or so, I've seen this kind of behavior, at least with 3 different birds, of gathering nesting materials. As far as the Orioles go, we had one female behind the store that had a bill full of long fibers like this. We saw it at Whitehaven when we did the walk there. And then just this past Sunday, we did a walk at the Mary Frances Bluebird Haven and also saw a female Oriole with a nice bill full of long, stringy kind of nesting material. So they are definitely in that nest building process right now. And here's another photo that was sent in by Bob, and you can see what the nest looks like. They do weave a nice nest that hangs from the branch of a tree, and you can see it kind of tucked up in there. So it looks like this one's just about done. So they are in that nest building process. So you can expect them to still come to your feeders for a while. It might not be until they're really incubating and sitting on the eggs and feeding the nestlings that they kind of disappear for a little bit. So you probably have another week or more until they start to disappear a bit. As the females are sitting on the nest. That being said, once they do start to dwindle a little bit, if you put out mealworms as well as the jelly, like if you're feeding them the birdberry jelly, you can give them a supplement of the mealworms, and that can help keep them around. They usually do, though, if you do see that they kind of disappear, you'll find that if you do keep your feeders out, and if you keep the jelly out especially, they will ultimately bring the fledglings back to the feeder most of the time to kind of give them some billfuls of jelly. So the Orioles will be here all summer long. It's just whether or not you can attract them to your feeders all summer can be hit or miss. Now, if you have your Oriole feeders out, you might also get gray catbirds. We've had lots of people talking about their gray catbirds that they are getting at their feeders, and I've had more luck with gray catbirds than I have with Orioles this year. And the gray catbird, just like I was talking about at the beginning with the brown thrasher, that's a mimic. This is that other mimicking bird that will repeat songs once before going to the next and then having that meow kind of call. We heard a bunch of them on Sunday also at the bird walk. And then the mockingbird is the other mimic that you might get at your bird feeders, because they do go to the jelly and the oranges, and they'll also eat mealworms as well. So people were getting rose-breasted grosbeaks. They seem to have kind of dwindled off a little bit. If you're still getting them, I'd be curious to know if you can put it in the comments. But this is the male rose-breasted grosbeak. They're another migratory bird that flows into the area and comes to feeders quite often in the early spring. But also be out on the lookout for the indigo bunting. Not going to be as common as the rose-breasted grosbeak as far as coming to bird feeders, but people are lucky enough to get them. And they might like more of the smaller seeds. So they'll eat sunflower seed, but they tend to like the Niger seed and the millet. So you might see them coming to your finch feeder more so than your sunflower seed feeder. So a really pretty bird called the indigo bunting. And then if you're out birding, you might see all kinds of different birds hopping around in the trees. This year was a little tough for seeing some of the migratory birds because the leaves came out on some of the trees so early. Usually when the birds are first flowing in, the branches are pretty bare, so it's easier to see them, but they're pretty camouflaged in some of those trees. But that doesn't stop some of our viewers here from sending in photos, like Bob, who sent in this photo of a yellow-throated Vireo. He says, I guess the name yellow-throated Vireo is apropos. And you can see how it gets its name there. That's bright yellow throat. And one of the more common yellow birds you'll see here this time of the year is not just going to be the American goldfinch, but the yellow warbler. And we saw and heard a whole bunch of yellow warbler on Sunday at the walk out at the Bluebird Haven out in Victor. And so this is the yellow warbler. They're basically just a wash of all yellow. And then the male especially will have these kind of chestnut streaks on its breast. So a couple photos of the yellow warbler there. Here's what's called a black and white warbler. And Bob says, after researching more about my camera settings, I think I resolved my main issue. Here's a black and white warbler taken at Boughton Park in East Bloomfield / Victor area, but available by permit only, but this is a black and white warbler. And you might even see these in your yard here and there. They don't come to a bird feeder per se, but they do tend to climb up and down trees, like similar to that of a nuthatch that climbs down the tree and kind of creeps down the tree. The black and white warblers will do that same thing. So if you see a brown bird doing it, it's going to be a brown creeper. If you see a bird that has blue on it, it's usually going to be a white-breasted nuthatch. And if you see a black and white bird doing it, it's going to be this one, the black and white warbler. So that is another migratory bird that we have coming through the area. And then here's another one called the common yellowthroat. And this is another photo that was out at Boughton Park that Bob sent in. He says there were a crazy amount of warblers. And apparently, what's today? Apparently last week, Thursday or Friday was a really big day for warblers. There was a big fallout here. So a lot of people had some good luck with seeing warblers. Bob says, heard many, captured photos of a few. The story of warbler hunting. I did capture a Tennessee warbler and a common yellowthroat, though. So here's the common yellowthroat, and this is the male. They have that black mask that covers their face, and then, like their name suggests, the yellow throat. So that's the common yellowthroat. And then here's a Tennessee warbler. So another couple of migratory birds flowing through the area. Some other warblers to be on the lookout for. This is a chestnut-sided warbler. It's got those kind of reddish colored sides and a yellow cap on its head. The black-throated blue warbler, really, really pretty. Nashville warbler is another. Cape May warbler. So you can see there's a lot of different warbler species. There's over 30 that will flow through the area this time of the year. YellowRumped warbler, this one here, is another one that is quite common. That in the just yellow warbler, probably the two most common ones that you'll see in the area. And here's another picture of the YellowRumped warbler, and you can see that patch on its rump there. Here's a pine warbler, another pine warbler here. So you can see a lot of them are kind of yellowy in color, but some of them do have some pretty striking patterns. Like this palm warbler has a nice kind of reddish chestnut cap on the top of its head. So that's the palm warbler. Some other things to be looking for and listening for, especially if you're in the woods, are going to be wood thrush. They have a really beautiful song that kind of floats through the woods. And when we did our Tinker Nature Park walk last week, which was on Thursday, we heard a wood thrush calling in the woods, which was really fun. So, and then there are different flycatchers out there. There's the eastern phoebes are out there calling, the eastern wood pewees. Here's the eastern kingbird. So lots of flycatchers are back. We heard a great crested flycatcher also at that Tinker Nature Park walk, and they're a cavity nester, so that was in the woods somewhere. We didn't see it, but we heard its little buzzing call. So, and then there are babies out there already, not just those baby bluebirds that Bob sent the photos in, but here's a picture of a gosling. If you go by any kind of body of water, you'll probably see some goslings out there, and possibly even some mallard duck hatchlings now. And the mammals. Mammals are starting to have their babies that are going out into the wood or out into the world, like these foxes here. Photo sent in by Bob. And then we, in past broadcasts, one of our viewers who's on here a lot, Ed, mentioned that they've had a fisher in the neighborhood over by Men and Ponds Park. So I thought I'd show you a picture of a fisher, which is a type of weasel. So it's almost like a giant mink, if you've ever seen a mink. These are significantly bigger, and they are expanding their territories. So you're more likely to see them now than you used to. They can climb trees, and they will make sounds at night too. So if you hear something that sounds like, not quite like a screaming like a fox does, but if you hear some kind of interesting sounds at night, could very well be a fisher. And then another mammal sighting people are getting around here as they are passing through are the black bears. We've had a few phone calls from people, not so much in the Rochester area as far as concentrated in the city kind of area. But if they're out in the outskirts, more like Honeoye or down by Canandaigua Lake or down by any of the Finger Lakes, that's lots of black bears are in those kind of areas and habitats, and they're wandering around, and they will come to bird feeders too, especially at night. So if you wake up in the morning and your feeder is down or broken, or especially if you have a metal pole and it's been bent, that's going to be from a bear. We do get reports of them wandering through, Pittsford or Henrietta here and there. So they are known to do that, but they're kind of wandering right now. Usually it's the young males and they're trying to kind of find their territory. So we've been hearing some reports of those, and we'll continue to probably for the next couple weeks. So that happens every year around this time. So thank you guys for watching. It looks like a couple of you guys are on and have comments or questions. Dina is on. She says, good morning, everyone. I'm having lots of Orioles. So pleased. A few hummingbirds usually in the morning and evening. Hope other Oriole lovers get some soon. So yeah, we've been getting some decent reports on Orioles. The hummingbirds have been a little lacking, though, it seems like. Pam's on, and she says lots of Orioles, only one hummingbird so far. So Pam is experiencing some of that same thing that others are. Bob is on, who sent in a whole bunch of photos here, and he says many birds around. Indigo bunting singing away this morning looked to be a non-breeding male. Like Dina, a lot of Orioles, but the nesting pair is chasing all the other Orioles away. Oh yeah, that's an interesting thing. I'm not sure how big their territories all are, how many acres their territories tend to be when they're nesting, but that would be an interesting thing to look up. Doesn't surprise me that they're getting more territorial now that the nest building has begun. So it's a really fun time of year. So thank you guys for sending in your photos. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any birding kind of questions, pop on in or give us a call. We're here 7 days a week, and we will be open Memorial Day weekend, including Memorial Day, from 10 till 3. So shortened hours. We also have our jigsaw puzzle swap happening this weekend. And so you can come in and swap out any of your old puzzles for some new to you puzzles. That's happening all weekend long. So that is this Saturday and Sunday, the 27th and 28th. And we'll also be at Market in the Park. If you're in the Rochester area, this Saturday we'll have a table at Market in the Park, which is out at Werner Castle, out by Mount Hope Cemetery. So we'll be out there handing out coupons, and we'll have a booth out there. So stop by and say hi if you are out there. So until next time, have a great day, have a great week, and let us know what kind of things you're seeing. Send your photos in to us either on Instagram or on Facebook, or you can email them to us as well. We love to know what kind of things you're seeing. So we will talk to you soon, and